visual novels have always been a very interesting thing to me. Because despite the fact that I have watched and played many of them over the time that I've been playing games in general, I cannot say I've really had much experience making one. I've used RPG Maker for 12 years at this point, and despite its third most popular thing being made in it, despite RPGs and horror games, of which many of those horror games are visual novels, I have not really touched making a visual novel in RPG Maker, or at all. And while typically speaking, I could just be I just suddenly felt like making this game, because honestly, when it comes to most of the games I make, it tends to just be that's a cool idea, let's just make this, that sounds cool, let's go with this idea, and then just explore it further. But this one has a way more interesting story, which I really am interested to tell. Obviously, from the title, you can tell it's about ADHD. This visual novel is based around real-life experiences dealing with ADHD. And I want to kind of go through the process of how I went from basically wanting to make games for my entire life to suddenly not making them at all. And eventually coming back to, I guess, get back on the wagon and start making them again. And why exactly that led me down a path to making a visual novel about ADHD. In the start of 2022, I released a game called I Need a Name. It was a stealth parody of typical horror RPG Maker games where, it got mixed reception, and I'm pretty fine with that because I feel like if you don't get the joke, then it kind of just comes across as very mediocre and bland. But there are some people who genuinely enjoyed it. And it was nice because it started off the year with kind of hey, this is fun. It's the 10th anniversary of me making RPG Maker games. This will be a fun way to kind of get started with that. And then from there, I made a couple of other side projects on the side that I never really released. Then came kind of middle-ish of the year where I was in the process of making another game called Second Thoughts. Second Thoughts came about via, interestingly, spite. I had watched another YouTuber, Markiplier, I'm sure you don't know who that is. He had played a game called The Test. The Test is a very, very simplistic RPG Maker game where you essentially just answer questions in a single room for about 20 or so minutes, and it gives you an ending based on those questions and the answers you gave. Interesting enough premise, but something kind of hit in my brain. I'd been spending 10 years making these games and trying my best to do what I could, but there was something about this game specifically that made me go, man, this game got played by Markiplier? That would be a dream for me. Why this game? What was so special about it? So I sought out to make a game that was kind of in the same vein of it. I made a game where the whole purpose of it was essentially the ending is of what you make of it kind of thing. And so Second Thoughts was very quickly made. A text-based game where you have to choose people to execute. And it's kind of funny. It ended up being my most popular game, by a large margin. I am not a well-known developer by any means necessary or anything like that. On Steam, my games would be getting 10 reviews max, and 10 is the very bare minimum. You should never get below 10, ever. People have thousands upon thousands of reviews, but Second Thoughts has now gone on to get 70 reviews, which, once again, grand scheme of things, doesn't seem that big. But when you're looking at someone who had 10 reviews, 70 seems ginormous. But I realized that the spite had kind of died down as I finished up the game, and I just kind of released it. I just put it out there and never advertised it, never really told anyone about it. But despite not telling anyone about it, it still made quite a bit of splash, in terms of, the circles it made it to. I was watching Twitch streamers play the game, not big ones or anything like that. There was a couple of ones who had a million subs or so, and that was really cool because that was brand new to me. So what happened next? Where did I go from there? 2022 clearly seemed like the year things were going right for me. And then from there, at the end of the year, going more so forward, as I was making my next big game, I made the video where I was going over the past 10 years of RPG Maker. And that video went extremely well too. I think it has 70,000 views now or something like that. 60,000, I can't remember. And it's that sounds amazing. Things were going perfectly right. I was even working on a sequel to Second Thoughts Terminal, which is still got its store page up, though it's not out yet. And it's unfortunate, because going into 2023, January, when I finished the demo for Second Thoughts Terminal, I completely hit burnout. There's a lot of stuff behind the scenes in terms of, just general mental health, in terms of the feeling of just not being able to make it, which is almost paradoxical, because I had just made my first game where it did start to take off. People were seeing it. I hadn't advertised it at all, but at the same time, that was kind of a double-edged sword. I hadn't advertised it at all, but what if I had? What if I had just taken the time to tell YouTubers and show it in Reddits and get it in festivals? It could have been a massive success. I could have, been known and had money and be able to be financial, okay with myself. And that kind of broke it a bit. It kind of broke it a bit because I realized, is this what I really want to do? Is this really the path I want to take? I just put all this spite into this game and it turned out actually great for me. But I don't want to make games out of spite. I want to make games for fun's sake. And it wasn't really a thing I was used to. So it just kind of all collapsed. So I guess that's where we begin 2023. The unfortunate collapse. It's no secret that on this channel I don't exactly upload very often. Something I hope to change at the time of this recording, but who knows how things will go. I might just make this one video and then, be done with it. This video might not even get made. I mean, I've been wanting to record this for days, and here I am, Sunday the 2nd, and still trying my best to just get it out there. But overall, before the point where I stopped making games for a while, I started off 2023 decently strong. I had released Vexation, a demo of it, onto store pages. I had put up Second Thoughts Terminal store page. I had a demo ready for it, but then when everything kind of mentally hit a wall, I just stopped. It was hitting the middle of the year and I still hadn't really done anything at all. It had been several months since I'd even really touched RPG Maker. And then the Grimace meme happened. That was a silly meme. Everyone remembers it. Oh, Grimace is gonna destroy you. Ooh. And you drink his shake and you die. It's a very silly meme. And I thought, what if I made a game on it? What if I was really quick and made a game on it? It could be really, silly and fun. Just make it. I did it. I did make the game and I made a video on it. All was well. I made this game. But the thing is, I only made this game because I was purely focused on, what if it takes off? What if I can get people's attention on it? What if I can get them to see my other games? I was making games at this point purely because I was so desperate to try and get people to see it. I had gotten a little taste of people seeing something I had made, and I was like, please, just see what I'm making. And it wasn't working. Another Grimace game came out first and all the YouTubers played it, and my game got seen by nobody, and I just kind of stopped making games again after that. I stopped completely, actually. Because as 2023 carried on, and I had stopped making games or doing any sort of promotion or anything, money was getting low. So I went to get a job. I enjoyed my job, actually. I found it quite nice that I could just make money doing a very simple and basic task, and I didn't have to think anything about it. Just do the job. Go in, go out, go in, go out. It felt relaxing because it was no longer on me to have to take care of everything. And that was a place I was willing to settle for, but going into 2024, I started to realize something. As the months in 2024 went by, it was roughly the middle of the year. I had made no games at all. I was burnt out completely. I had thought so many times about games I could make, but I just wasn't making them. I just wasn't doing anything about it. And I'd realized that the go in, go out job that I had was just destroying my want to make games. Because I realized in this time of the year that I had lost my motivation because of burnout, but it was more than that. I no longer had drive and dopamine going to my brain about making games because I had completely changed how I was viewing making games. And that made it very hard to get back to making them at all. But I realized if I kept doing the job, if I just kept going, I was never going to make games again. I was just going to enjoy this go in, go out. And not to say the job itself was easy. the difference between the self-motivation needed to get the job done. At a job, I'm just being told, you gotta do this. It's like, okay, cool, I've done it 1,000 times. It's no different. But making a game, it's not the same. Every day is a different challenge, a different task, a different idea you want to put into a game. And you gotta do it all, especially if you're doing it on your own. And I soon realized I had to quit. So, come October, I did. Now, as someone who doesn't really spend that much money in terms of luxuries of that, maybe food is the biggest luxury I had saved money. I had saved money up, and I decided this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to use my savings, I'm going to keep myself going until I can make some games and make a genuine chance at advertising. Putting together games I actually want to see, and I did it. I quit my job, and I figured, let's try this. So I started making nothing. It was a few months. Everything was not as well as I thought it was going to be, and I was so confused. Why? I had found the motivation to quit. I had found the motivation to leave, save my money, get going, but why, when I sat down at my computer and opened RPG Maker, did I just stare at the screen for hours? Why was I not doing anything? Why was it so much easier to just close the program and go play games with my friends for a few hours? If they needed help with something, I was there. All day long, I'll do it. I'll make sure it's done. But what was happening? What was actually occurring that was making it so difficult to just do anything? For a long time, I thought it was just pure laziness. And to be fair, there are days where I'm sure it is just laziness. You know, sometimes you don't want to do something, and sometimes you can just feel the want to be lazy, the want to ignore the thing you need to get done. But this was different. Ever since I was a young kid, and I mean a young kid, like, you know, when kids are saying they want to be an astronaut and they want to be a firefighter, I was saying I want to be a game developer. I knew very young what I wanted to be, which I know is a struggle for a lot of people, even going into college and university, what they actually want to do. I was lucky enough that I just knew so early. So this lifelong idea in my brain, this thing I had spent like 10 years making games, of which I had a video and a decently successful game by my own standards out there, a sequel I could make, an idea or thread I could go for. Why was I not doing anything? Why was I just sitting here? So I began to do research. I began to talk to people about stuff. I began to open up about the struggle, and after a while, and you know, talking and with professionals and kind of stuff like that, therapy and the such. Oh, that's what's wrong. It's ADHD. Just like many people online have told you before, and I'm sure you're very sick of it by now, ADHD was unfortunately the cause of this extremely powerful burnout that essentially had put me in a position where I felt like nothing I was doing had any weight to it. What was I doing anymore? And despite knowing, it still didn't really help. Come November time and early December, it started to work. I started to make a game. I had focused so long on the idea of gotta be completely original, gotta make something that's just completely different out there. So let's make this game. Let's make a game and just make it because I want to make a game. Stop thinking about, I want to be so original, I want to be the most original thing on the planet. I want a game where it's just everything I've done. Because there was something in my brain that was telling me, I really want to make a game like this. But it'd just be a rip-off I made a game like that. But so many other people have made games like that, so why can't I? It may not be the most original thing ever. And so you're probably thinking, this is where the visual novel comes in. This ADHD visual novel, a mental health visual novel with a lo-fi aesthetic, clearly based on the bag inside a bag of milk, or milk inside a bag of milk. Can't even get the title right. And you'd be right, but at the same time, you'd also be completely wrong. Because I hadn't even started making the visual novel yet. This was a wholly other game that I was making. And I made it. I made a very solid demo for it. And I'm going to be working on it more throughout this year. But I haven't released it yet. It was planned to be released before the visual novel stuff. In fact, I hadn't even thought about the visual novel. It hadn't even occurred to me yet. But as I came into the new year, I was looking through my Steamworks and all that kind of stuff and saw there's a new festival coming up very shortly, you know, in March. Visual Novel Festival. It'd be cool to have a game in a festival for once because I've never really done that before. And I thought, I've got such a short amount of time, can I really do it? I've already got this other game going, shouldn't I just focus on that? And that's where I realized, it hit something in my brain. I could just make this on the side. I could make both of these things. I'm more than capable of making both of these games. I could do it. I could just get it done. But it was not so easy, because this is where 2025 really comes into effect. 2025, the current year as of time of this recording, and will be for a while this video is up, I began this visual novel idea in late January and figured, let's just get it done. Let's make a visual novel. What should it be about? You know what? Let's just make it about something I know. Something I have recently really gone into and discovered for myself. ADHD. And I figured, let's look it up. Let's see if there's any visual novel about ADHD and visual novel about, thing. And I thought, of course, Milk Inside a Bag of Milk. And I figured, using its visual style, I could pay homage to it. Would you consider it a ripoff? Maybe. I don't know. I don't know if I want to consider it a ripoff, because the entire point is that I made it look like that because I was inspired by that game. But at the same time, I'm not a master artiste either. So I didn't really have a leg to stand on in terms of making it look like the most fantastic thing. But then I realized, why am I trying to do it alone? I got other people who can help out. My best friend has wanted to make a visual novel for such a long time. I'm sure they'll be more than happy to help me out with making this visual novel. And of course they were, of course. And it was super exciting. Hilariously enough, ADHD got in the way. ADHD got in the way of making a game about ADHD because I was struggling to even get started. The very basics of making a visual novel in RPG Maker. And of course I wanted to make my own custom systems because I always do in RPG Maker. So I wanted to make my own custom scrolling text and my own text display and all that. And I slowly got it done over the course of weeks. But it was kind of getting a bit scary because it was still only maybe 3 weeks before the Visual Novel Festival, and I wasn't really getting anywhere. I had gotten some basic bare bones script stuff done, and I wasn't really pushing. I hadn't even really told my best friend what I wanted them to do yet. But then it slowly came together. Although despite everything that was happening, the one thing that kind of got me motivated was that deadline. Like many people will tell you, deadlines are a powerful tool. But since I didn't know which deadline I was actually working to, I kind of had to go on the assumption that every day was the deadline. Because, though the Visual Novel Festival started on the 3rd of March, I still had to get the game approved. And if the game had any issues with Steam and their verification process, I had to make sure I fixed those and get it sent back in again. So I had to make sure that I was done ASAP. And so things began to fall a bit more into place. That ever-looming deadline of unspecified got me to kind of get the script done, send off ideas to my best friend, get stuff in, and it all came together. Hilariously enough, my best friend also has ADHD. And that led to this exact same thing of them telling me trying to draw assets for it is hard to concentrate because of ADHD. And I realized there is a lot of people out there experiencing ADHD in so many different ways. And anywhere you go, people will tell you, that's not ADHD, that's just laziness. Or that's not ADHD because that's not how I experience it. And so that's why this game exists. There's a lot of people out there and they're experiencing this thing. It can be consuming all over your life, or it can be a minor inconvenience on days where you don't need it. It's a different thing for everybody, and I want to try and show that in this game. The reason this game is built the way it is, it's got pathways and choices to show mental health in all sorts of different factors. Not only the main character having ADHD, but there'll be other characters with their own issues as well. Because I want to show up front that ADHD is not just a one-person thing. People will say, most likely, that's very relatable, what that person did or how the character acted. But other people will say it's nothing like that. That's not a depiction of ADHD at all. That's just the stereotypical ADHD stuff. But that's kind of the point. If that's how people experience it, then I'm kind of glad. Now, there's not a demo of the game available yet. There was supposed to be, but you won't believe it, ADHD got in the way. I have a demo done, practically. But it's not quite fully finished. But I wasn't done in time and I didn't want to stress myself out anymore and figured I don't need a demo for the festival. I just need the store page so I can get people wishlisting the game to actually start the process. And I've made this video to try and be like, hey, I got this game and I hope you enjoy it. I hope you want to wishlist it. Wishlist it on Steam. Link below. As much as it feels like pandering and shilling out, to just be like, please look at the game. Yeah, of course it is. I want people to play the game. I want money from the game because I want to live so I can make more games. If I made so much money from my games that I no longer had to worry about money forever, I would charge nothing for my games. Because money means so little to me outside of just wanting to live and exist. But it has to be done. I have to push people to be like, please wishlist the game. Because otherwise, it won't get anywhere. And, you know, that's just the way it has to go. And of course, if this isn't your type of game, you know, and you're not wanting to wishlist it and just wanted to watch the video, that's fine too. I'm not going to say wishlist it just for the sake of, you know, having it on a number. The whole point of wishlist is that it's supposed to be potential people who will buy it. So regardless, thanks. And that concludes the video. This was an interesting one, certainly different from my other videos. You know, normally I want to kind of talk about different topics and so like the making of games, and my other videos will probably be, you know, a bit more, less story time about personal stuff. But I do have other videos coming. There are other videos. I'll tell you 2 of them now, just so I can maybe just hold myself to something in the future. I've got a video coming up of me recreating the original Five Nights at Freddy's in RPG Maker, and the process of how that came to be. Which I'm sure many people will be happy about, because I saw many people wanted to know how I made FNAF and RPG Maker in one of my previous videos. And I've also got another one, which will be talking about the other game I mentioned, the first one I'd made prior to the visual novel. So hopefully I'll get those done within the next few months, and maybe this channel can actually be a bit more lively than just a video a year, which seems to be the current rate I'm going at. But we'll see what happens. And whatever happens, thanks for watching. It's been a blast so far.